Welcome everybody. In today's video, we are going to be ranking all of War Thunder's Fox-3 carrying planes on a tier list from S tier to F tier. Now before I get into this video, I just want to say it won't really be fair for me to rank a 12.7 F-14A against the 14.0 Eurofighter, as they are much different from each other and the Eurofighter is much more technologically advanced. So on this tier list, I will be ranking planes based on their own battle rating and how well they perform at their own matchmaking and in their own meta. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. Starting off with the F-16C, and the F-16C is at 13.7, and one thing I will say is being at 13.7 is actually a pretty good battle rating right now. The reason is just because 13.7 just doesn't get too many full 14.0 games because there aren't that many 14.0s in the game right now. Your down tiers, I'm not going to say they're abundant, but they're not uncommon, so you will get quite a lot of them. So the matchmaker is pretty decent. Here's the thing though, F-16C just lacks a good missile kit. Only 6 missiles, only 6 AMRAAMs just really isn't that great when it comes to your missile loadout. I think when it comes to top tier, you want to have at least 6 missiles, but that's like the bare minimum. 8 missiles is the recommended amount. So it has a pretty weak missile kit, and the overall flight model is very good, just it does lack a little bit of engine power when it comes to high altitudes. Yes, I think it's an amazing engine, but at the end of the day, you're not an F-15E, but still a really good plane. I would be giving it an A tier, but not really an S tier, because you really need that great missile loadout if you want to have some more success. Now our next plane is the F-14B, and this plane barely qualifies to be on this tier list, but it does carry Fox-3s, which are the AIM-54Cs. Now these missiles basically suck. They're only good at long-range missile spam, they suck at close ranges, so it's just not that effective. They're not versatile missiles, and you will not get too much success with them. Here's the thing though, the AIM-54C just doesn't work really well, because in the meta right now, you can't really do long-range missile spam and get a lot of success from it. People are getting smarter, so it makes this missile a lot less effective. The plane itself though is not bad. The matchmaker is the main issue. Now, you have a pretty good flight performance, you have some pretty decent missiles, but you're at 13.0, and you're not really relying on your Fox-3s to get kills, so a plane like this will definitely struggle in the matchmaker, especially in up tiers when you face Fox-3 planes. The flight performance is pretty okay, your missiles are not bad in a down tier, but this plane just is a bipolar. If you get up tier, you are dead. If you get down tier, you're going to pretty much dominate. So I will be putting this plane probably in a low B tier, as just not in a very great spot in the meta right now. 13.0, 12.7 is pretty hella right now if you don't have actual good Fox-3s. Now the F-14A is pretty much in a similar situation. The only major difference is the F-14A's engines are significantly weaker than the F-14B, and it also has A9Hs instead of A9Ls for IR missiles. A9Hs are basically less range and not all aspect, but still not a bad missile. Here's the thing though, you're still in the range where if you get up tiered, you're going to suffer because of Fox-3 planes running your ass down. Still though, F-14A, not too bad of a plane. AIM-54s are going to be pretty much useless. Still though, this plane is a lower BR and not necessarily better in flight performance, but I feel like it is better when it comes down to your average game, so I will be putting it above the F-14B. This might look kind of strange to you guys, but I am rating these planes based off of their BR and based off how well they perform in their matchmaker and their meta. Alright, our next plane is the AV-8B+, and this plane is a Harrier at 13.0, so you guys know how it goes. Any Harrier above really 10.0, 10.3 is going to struggle, and this plane being at 13.0 just kind of sucks. The flight model is slow, you turn decently, but you just lose a lot of speed. Your VTOL will not carry you in dogfights. Good luck winning dogfights in this thing, you will not be having much success with that. Here's the thing though, 13.0, you have a pretty good kit. You have 4 AMRAAMs and 2 A9Ms, a total of 6 missiles, and this plane really excels in getting kills. Here's the thing though, when you get up tier, you will struggle a lot just because you are a lot slower and you have a lot less kit in the missile loadout. You have a lot less missiles. And what that means is basically this plane is in a bipolar position where if you get up tier, you kind of suffer, you get down tier, you dominate. And planes like these, I just don't feel like are very effective in the meta right now. So we'll be having to give this plane a B tier. I'm going to put it above the F-14As as you can get more kills. The thing is, the Harrier just doesn't excel at anything in particular either. Alrighty, our next plane is the F-15E, and this plane is the glorious top tier king right now. The F-15E, in my personal opinion, is some of the best planes you can fly right now in War Thunder. Here's the thing though, the F-15E has a very good BVR performance because of its heavily strong engines that is very powerful. The most powerful engines right now in top tier ARB. Here's the thing though, the F-15E is very strong in engine power, has a lot of missiles, so you have a very good kit, but when it comes down to overall flight performance, it's actually quite bad compared to other planes. Keyword compared. The thing is, F-15s have great flight performance, But as more planes get added to top tier, more modern planes are added in, you just don't have the same advantage as you once did. Eurofighters, Rafales will run you down. You have the Gripens, you have F-16s, you have the J-10. They will beat you in a dogfight very easily. And this thing does not have bad flight performance, but when it comes to a 1v1, you will struggle. When it comes to closer ranges, you will struggle. When it comes to playing on the deck, you will be at a slight, or heavy disadvantage actually, because you are just a lot more compressed, or you are just a lot worse in flight performance than a lot of other planes. One thing to keep in mind is the F-15 also sometimes struggles to get into a notch, especially when you're compressing. I see a lot of F-15 players try to push close, and they just die because they can't get into the notch fast enough. So be careful when you fly this plane. It has a lot of potential, but it requires you to play it very, very carefully and correctly. So still nastier, great plane, but you need to be able to fly it with some know-how. Now our next plane is the F-14A IRIAF. This plane is 12.7, should not be 12.7, but this plane also is getting moved up soon to 13.0 because of the new BR changes. Here's the thing, why is this plane so OP? Because of the Core 90s. When you get down here, these missiles are extremely powerful. Now a Core 90 is basically just a better AIM-54. It accelerates much faster, has better pull, and is very, very deadly because it can get to your opponents very fast. Otherwise, though, this plane is pretty similar to the F-14B and the F-14A. You have R-27Rs on this plane as well, and R-27Ts, which are Russian, so it's a little bit different. But realistically, everything else is pretty similar. And yeah, you are in a pretty good position in the meta in a down tier, but up tiers, you will struggle a lot. As once again, the cores cannot be used at under 15 kilometers. So me personally, the F-14A IRIAF will be probably a B tier. I'm going to put it in between the F-14A and the AV-8B+, as I really don't see this plane being that great, especially after the BR changes to 13.0. Now our next plane and our last American plane is the F-15C MSIP-2, and this plane is kind of overshadowed by the F-15E quite a lot actually. It used to be very, very strong. The engines were very, very strong, but now the F-15E having much stronger engines just overshadows it. This plane though is still not bad at all. It has a very good missile kit, it has decent flight performance, and in my personal opinion, the F-15C has the best flight performance for ARB. You need a flight model that retains energy very well, that is fast, and is also very powerful in engine, and it has it all. It just doesn't have what the F-15E has in power. Still though, a very good plane. Kit is the same as the F-15E, so I will be putting it just underneath it in S tier as well. Now, moving on to the German planes, we have the Eurofighter 2000 first. And one thing I will be saying is, the Eurofighters are basically all the same when it comes to ARB, just one slight difference. The German Eurofighter does not have IRST. What is IRST, you might ask? IRST is basically a radar mode where you can slave your iron missiles after locking onto an enemy with a radar lock. However, it does not give the enemy an RWR ping, so it's pretty sneaky. The thing is, you actually can't launch Fox-3s in this mode, and what happens is, your radar, if it has RST, will sometimes switch to it randomly when you're trying to lock people normally, and that kind of messes you up. It doesn't really allow you to shoot the missile you're trying to shoot, so it can be really detrimental. The thing is, the German Eurofighter doesn't have this feature, meaning it's a lot less vulnerable to this, kind of annoying little feature, so the Eurofighter in Germany will have an advantage to this. One more thing about the Eurofighter is, it is actually, in my opinion, better than the F-14, the F-15E. This plane is, sure, worse when it comes to engine power, but it's better at everything else. The missiles are the same, but when it comes down to flight model in a 1v1, this plane is much better. Currently, it is the best dogfighter in-game. It narrowly beats the Rafale, and it beats every other plane pretty easily. This plane has an insane turn rate, is very good at low speed, and your engine power really carries you in most of the dogfights. It's very lethal in a 1v1, and it fits a lot of more, niches than the F-15E. F-15E is great at long-range missile spam and long-range BVR. So is the Eurofighter. It's just slightly worse, but the Eurofighter also fits better in chaos. It's better on the deck. It's better at close-range engagements, where the F-15E will struggle more. So in my opinion, the Eurofighter is just more versatile and better to play, and more brain-dead as well, as you can out-dogfight basically everybody. Our next plane will be the F4F Ice, and the F4F Ice gets a lot of hate. I think it really doesn't deserve all the hate. The thing is, the F4F Ice, being a Phantom with Fox-3s, well, it's kind of silly. The thing is, this plane is 13.0, and we are ranking planes based on their flight performance at the BR they are at, so the F4F Ice actually isn't that bad. The thing is, this plane has a terrible flight model, but you have good missiles. You have 8 missiles. 4 of them are IR missiles, they have IRCCM, the AIM-9LIs, and you also have Fox-3s being the AIM-120s. This kit is very strong at 13.0. You get down here, you will be very lethal. You get up here, sure, you're going to struggle, but it's not bad at all. I feel like this plane is actually just a lot of hate getting towards it, but it's actually not that bad. Yeah, you're going to lose basically every 1v1, especially in up tiers, but it's just pretty good in down tiers. it does create the one problem where I talked about before. Up tier equals death, down tier equals win. So in my personal opinion, still not too versatile. I will be giving it a B tier above the AVIB plus, but no higher, as once again, Phantom flight performance can only get you so far. Now, our first USSR plane will be the S-227SM, and this plane is pretty good when it comes to kill potential. Actually, some of the most missiles you can carry in the game of 12. Now, the thing is, your missiles just are kind of mid. R-27 ETs are very good, but the R-73 just isn't that great when it comes down to hitting targets. The flight resistance is very strong when it comes to close range shots, but long range, especially side aspect shots, get flared really easily if your opponent pre-flares or just flares early. The thing is, your Fox-3 missiles, R-77s, kind of suck. They are terrible at long range, and at close range, they're not even that good. It says 50 Gs, but this missile loses so much energy, it's super easy to kinetically defeat, and just is a lot easier to notch and shaft. It's just not great at all. I only see this missile excelling underneath 3 kilometers, so a pretty terrible Fox-3 in my personal opinion. Some of the worst Fox-3s in the game, so not a very good missile. Still though, the flight performance isn't that bad. In a 1v1, yeah, you're gonna suck. You gotta kill people fast or you're gonna lose the long run. But the thing is, your flight performance is fit enough for ARB. It's not like a tornado where it definitely detriments you when it comes down to your average ARB game. You have good kill potential, you have a decent amount of countermeasures, and you got a pretty good missile kit. As long as you got missiles to shoot, people to shoot at, you're gonna get kills. So in my personal opinion, this plane would be an A tier. I'm gonna put it actually above the F-16C, as I feel like you have higher kill potential and higher ability to get more frags. Flight performance, yeah, it's worse, but I would put it higher just because your average ARB game will not be dependent on a 1v1. Now our next plane is the Su-34 fullback, and this plane is pretty similar to the S-27 SM in flight performance, as you bleed a lot of speed and you turn pretty well with good AOA. Here's the thing though, Su-34 is a lot heavier than the S-27. Basically, it loses a lot more speed, and your canards, the double canards, as you guys can see, they are very detrimental to your speed bleed, and it gives you some pretty wacky low speed performance, but realistically, in your average fight, it's not going to do you too well. One thing is, the S-34 actually gets a good amount of missiles of 10. You're also at 13.3 with the same load as the S-27 SM, so you are in a pretty good position when it comes down to getting kills. As long as you have missiles to shoot, people to shoot at, you're going to get kills, which is the same thing I said with the S-27. You have good kill potential, but terrible flight performance. Arguably worse than the S-27, well, it is definitely worse. And you also have no HMD, so a pretty detrimental plane. My personal opinion, being 13.3 does give you a pretty big edge over opponents and having 10 missiles, but still, this plane is not that great. Me personally, I'd probably rank it in a B tier above the F-14A IRIAFs and also the other F-14B, but realistically, I wouldn't see playing this plane as well because it's just not that great overall. Now, our next plane is the Gripen C from Britain, and I actually have 2 Gripens in the tier list, one from Britain, one from Sweden, and here is why I am ranking them all 2 separate planes. The thing is, the Gripen C has one major difference in loadout. It has R-Darters instead of AMRAAMs. Here's the thing. AMRAAMs and R-Darters are pretty different missiles. The AMRAAM is good at long range, R-Darters are better at close range. And when it comes to a plane like the Gripen, you want to be forcing people to get close to you. Gripen is not very good at long range engagements, it has a poor engine, can't really get up to altitude and compete as easily, so you will want to be pushing engagements closer as you have a lot of flight performance and you have really good turn and also a ton of countermeasures. So you want to be pushing close range engagements. In that scenario, you want a better missile that's better at close range like the R-Darter. So the Gripen will be probably an A tier plane as well. I'm going to put it actually above the F-16C as I find myself enjoying this plane more. But one thing especially about the Gripen is you can only play basically one playstyle, aggressive. You gotta be going into furballs, diving on people, you gotta be going super aggressive and taking risks, or you will not get anything done with this plane. I reviewed the Gripen A variant, it is the same thing. You are pretty bad when it comes down to kill potential because only 6 missiles, only being able to carry 4 Fox-3s is very detrimental to your kill potential, but you can make it work, you just gotta play extremely aggressive. Now, our next plane will be the Typhoon FGR4. As I talked about, the Eurofighter has the same issue with when it comes down to IRST just messing up your locks. The German Eurofighter does not suffer from this, so hence I will be putting the FGR4 underneath it because it does have the IRST issue. But the thing is, you are still a Eurofighter. If you did not see what I said about the Eurofighter 2000 in Germany, essentially this plane has amazing flight performance. It is better than the F-15E because it can face more playstyles. It's more versatile because of its flight model. It is great in a 1v1, the best 1v1 actually in the game right now. And it also has something very, very good. It has basically no compression at high speeds, and you can turn basically the same amount as you are going 1000 on the deck, but instead you are at 5000 meters and you are going Mach 1.5. I don't know if that's a bug or something, but it is very detrimental to planes like the F-15E when you don't have the same performance. Now, our next plane will be the Tornado F3 Late, and this plane is very, very poor right now. 13.3, and being basically worse than an F-Ref Ice in every which way gives you quite a big issue. Now, this is one of the planes where actually your flight performance means a lot, and when it comes to having a Tornado flight performance, it is just very bad to this plane. You cannot pull into the notch fast enough because your plane is such a boat, you don't turn at all, and this plane is just very poor. Yeah, you got a pretty good loadout of 4 AMRAAM, 4 AIM-9Ms. The thing is, Tornado at 13.3 is already going to be very, very poor, and you're just not going to have very good flight performance to back it up. So I will be putting this plane probably in a D tier, as you don't want to really be touching this right now. Luckily, though, it's being moved down to 13.0 because of new BR changes, so it will be a lot more flyable after the update. Now, our next plane is the MiG-29 SMT, and this plane has been off meta for so long now. This plane basically is very weak in flight performance. MiG-29s right now are not doing too well when it comes to your flight model, and having a massive fuel tank in the back of your plane makes it a lot more heavy and a lot worse as well. This plane has a terrible loadout of 6 R-77s, or you can carry 4 and take 2 R-73s. Either way, it's a really bad loadout. Only 6 missiles and only having pretty mid R-77s and having a, hit or miss R-73 when it comes down to flare resistancy just isn't that great. Paired along with the bad flight model, this plane is very, very poor. Now, the Tornado F3 Late is actually probably going to be better as you have more missiles to shoot at people. When it comes to a flight model, yeah, it's worse. But I'm going to be honest, guys, MiG-29 SMT is not it right now. I don't see anyone flying this plane too much anymore. I would have to give it a D tier, as of right now, this plane is just not very strong at all. Now, our next plane is the F-16A OCU, and this is our first Chinese plane. And essentially, this plane is right now the worst F-16 in game right now. The reason is because, one, this plane has 45 flares or countermeasures in total, so not a lot at all. You have no HMD, and also you only have Python 3s as your iron missile. So get this. This thing is an F-16C, you have a worse engine, you have a worse iron missiles, you have a worse radar, and also you have a lot less countermeasures. So I do not find this plane fun at all. I mean, 13.7 is just way too high for a plane like this. Luckily, though, it's getting moved down because of BR changes to 13.3, but right now it's not that great at all. Once again, you are an F-16A, so you have good flight performance, but realistically not that great in your average ARB game. I'm going to be putting it in a C tier as you have flight performance to back yourself up, but just not good at all in top tier meta right now. Now, next plane is the F-15JM, and I'm sorry for calling the F-16A a Chinese plane. It's actually Japanese, and the F-15JM is basically an F-15C, but it is slightly lighter, so it will be better than the F-15C. Once again, though, no F-15E engine. You have AAM-3s, which are longer range and pull 40 Gs, so they're better than the AIM-9M, but realistically, it's not going to do you too well, as you are mostly relying on your Fox-3s. Now, our next plane is a Harrier FA2, and this plane is at a low BR of 13.0, but here is the thing about this plane. You have an Aviate-A flight model, a 9.7 flight model, and you bring it to 13.0 and strap some AMRAAMs on it and call it a day. This plane absolutely sucks right now in the meta. I would not recommend flying this plane out at all. I don't think anyone does. This plane sucks. You have a terrible flight model. Your missiles aren't even that good. And this plane just overall is completely trash. I would not recommend flying it. Sure, at 13.0 you can get some stuff done, but I really don't recommend flying a plane like this. I will be having to give it an F tier. Now, our next plane is the JAF, and this plane is very interesting. If you guys don't know, this plane can only carry 2 Fox-3s, those being the PL-12s. Now, the PL-12s are bad missiles, as they are pretty much of a jack of all trades. They do decently at close range, decently at long range, and decently at mid range. Here's the thing though, a plane like the JAF just isn't that great in flight performance. 13.0, you are going up against F-16s and Gripens, and you have a flight performance of basically around the one of a MiG-21. So not great at all. Only 2 Fox-3s just gives you a huge issue. 13.0 is way too high for a plane like this, but at the same time, you can't really move it down because you don't want Fox-3s to be infiltrating other lower BRs. It's kind of hard plane to matchmake, a hard plane to really rank on the tier list, but I would have to give this plane probably an F tier as well, as your other missiles, their iron missiles, are going to be Python 3s or PL8s, which are, once again, good at low tiers, but at 13.0, where everyone has IRCCM, good luck, you're not going to have too much success with them. Now, our next plane is the J11A, and this plane is essentially just an SU-27SM. I don't know if there are any minor changes or minor differences, but I know they're basically the same thing, so it will be essentially the same tier. Now, our next plane is the JF-17, and this is the only Fox-3 carrying squadron vehicle on its tier list. Essentially, this plane is pretty good in flight performance, especially in a 1v1. Here's the thing though, it has a pretty weak engine, so weak acceleration, also loses a lot of speed when you get to low speeds. It's not bad at all in a dogfight, but the flight performance just isn't that great. The thing is, you're at 13.3 and you get 6 missiles. You get SD-10s, which are basically PL-12s, and you also get the PL-5E2, which is a very good, strong iron missile that has, less range, but it has a very good acceleration and flare resistancy. Similar to the Magic 2, just doesn't pull as hard. This plane, in my personal opinion, is very strong. I recommend you fly this plane out if you have researched it. It is very fun to play. Just lacks a little bit of flight performance, but realistically, it's not that bad. I'd be giving it an A tier underneath the F-16C, as it is very, very strong in a 1v1 and pretty fun to play. Our next plane will be the J-10A, and the J-10A is a very interesting plane. This plane is unique to China, and it has a similar flight performance to the Gripen. However, it has a lot more missiles. It has 8 missiles, 6 of them being PL-12s, and the other 2 being PL-5E2s, so you have a very good loadout. Once again, PL-12s are kind of a jack-of-all-trade missile. They do very well at long range and very well at close range as well, decently well. And the plane itself has a very good flight model for the J-10A, so in my personal opinion, you have a very good flight model in between kind of the Typhoon and the Gripen, and you also have a very good missile loadout, so I'll be putting this plane in S tier, in between the F-15Cs and the F-15E, as I feel like this plane, doesn't really have the engine power as the F-15E, but definitely has the loadout and the ability to dogfight and get close to people. Now, our next plane will be the Mirage 2005F, and there are a lot of Mirage 2005 variants in the game, but they're all pretty similar, so I'll be ranking them based on just one plane. Now, here's the thing. The Mirage 2005 is a very, very strong in the ability to push close. This plane is a delta wing, so it bleeds a lot of speed, but you are able to pull into the notch very fast and be able to defeat missiles a lot more easier. This plane has a very good missiles, the Mega M's. They are very, very lethal at close range because they have thrust vector, making this missile pull very hard off the rail, and is very effective when you get close and joust people. My personal opinion, this is probably the best jousting plane in the game right now. The thing is, when it comes down to long-range engagements, BVR, it is pretty poor because of a bad missile and a weaker engine. But still, this plane is amazing on the deck. It's amazing at mid-altitudes. And I think this plane is definitely probably a high A-tier plane on the tier list. Now, our next plane is the F-16AM. For guys who don't know this plane, it's essentially an F-16A. So you have a lighter airframe, but you have a worse engine, and you are at 13.7. In my personal opinion, I'd much rather have a better engine, as being lighter will help you in a 1v1, but in your average ARB game, flying around, you will not have much of a difference in performance. So me personally, F-16AM will probably be under the F-16C, and I will be giving it an A tier as well. Still the same flight performance, very good, same missile loadout. You just lack a lot of when it comes down to engine power. Now, our next plane is the Gripen C from Sweden, and I talked about this before with the Gripen C from Britain. Essentially, the Gripens are very good at closer range engagements with the Fox-3s, and when it comes to closer range engagements, you want a missile that's better at closer ranges, obviously. And with the Gripen C having the AMRAAM, it is just a worse and inferior to the Gripen C from Britain having the R-Darter, as the R-Darter is better at closer ranges in comparison. Now, the thing is, the Gripen C still has everything else. It has the great flight performance in a 1v1, it has tons of countermeasures, and has the ability to play super aggressive and get close to enemies. The thing is, the Gripen C really is pretty poor at long-range engagements. I talked about this with the Gripen C from Britain. Essentially, it struggles when it comes down to engine power, and doesn't have the best energy retention under a certain amount of speed, around 800 kilometers an hour, and just is not that great when it comes down to BVR. Still though, you can get super aggressive with this plane and get a lot of stuff done if you are willing to get into furballs, dive into furballs, and take some risks. So I'll be putting it right next to the Gripen C. I'll be putting it a little bit lower just because it has the worst missile for the plane respectively. Now, our next plane is the JA-37DI from Sweden. Now, this plane is a premium, but it is also in a tech tree. A lot of people tend to forget this, but I will just be using the one from premium. Now, the thing is, this is a Viggen at 13.0. You obviously have Fox-3s. You have 6 missiles in total. 4 of them are AMRAAMs, 2 of them are A9Ls. So you have no IRCC missiles. We have a terrible flight model, which, by the way, guys, loses to an F4E. The Viggen's gotten nerfed quite a lot these days, and it will literally lose to a Phantom. So I do not recommend flying this plane or buying it at all. You have a relatively fast airframe, but everything else sucks. You have mid loadouts. You have terrible flight performance, and you have like literally no countermeasures. So in my personal opinion, the JA-37DI would probably be a D tier. Do not buy this plane out. It is not fun to play, and I would not recommend to use this to grind Sweden at all. Now our next plane is the F-16D Barak 2 Block 40. Now this plane is basically an F-16, but it has a massive fuel tank on the back, making it a lot heavier and a lot worse in flight performance. This plane is 13.7, which is the same BR as the F-16C, its counterpart, and it is a lot worse, not only in flight performance, but also in missiles. You only get the derbies, and let me tell you, the derbies are one of the worst Fox-3s in the game right now. They have terrible range, they aren't that good at close or medium range distances, and just a pretty terrible missile in general. So you have a bad flight performance, mid missiles, and you are at the same BR as a plane that's just you but better. So honestly, not much of a reason to fly this plane out, and I will probably be giving this plane a D tier as well. Now, the Rafale is actually in the Israeli part of the video. I'm super sorry for this. I'm terribly sorry. I made a mistake putting this plane into the tier list, so bear with me, guys. I'll be talking about the Rafale really briefly here. It is an amazing plane, has a very good flight performance. Right now in game is currently the second best dogfighter, just behind the Eurofighter by a little margin. And the Rafale has amazing missiles. It is very good at pushing close range engagements. You have a very good flight performance, you turn very well, and you have the great Mega M's that are thrust vectoring, super good at close range. So I definitely recommend flying this Rafale out if you are grinding out France, because this plane is extremely strong in not only flight performance but also missile loadout. Sure, this plane kind of like lacks in BVR scenarios compared to planes like the Eurofighter and the F-15E, but I definitely recommend to use this plane when it comes down to being aggressive, because you can be on a deck, you can be at medium altitude, and get a lot done with this plane. So my personal opinion, it will be the second best plane in top tier right now, just behind the Eurofighters. Now, our last two planes are going to be both F-15s. So the Baz Meshupar, this plane is essentially an F-15C, but you are lacking TWS and HMD, and that's a pretty big issue, as you are going to be a lot worse off without these functions. And when it comes to flight performance, you're pretty similar, but realistically, lacking TWS especially is going to be a major issue to the Baz Meshupar. So I will be putting it in high B tier, as I don't feel like this plane is really worth a 13.7 because of these major, I guess, downsides. Now our last plane is the F15I Ra'am. For those of you who don't know, this plane is essentially an F-15E, but it's slightly lighter. That's the major difference with these two planes. They're basically the same exact thing, and the F15I Ra'am will be obviously better. Now, when it comes to your average Arabic game, it won't be that much of a difference, but when it comes down to ranking these planes on the tier list, I will have to be putting it higher. So guys, this basically wraps up the tier list. If you guys watched the video, thank you so much for your support. Please leave your comments, critiques, or questions in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.